Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
You ready?
Showtime.
On May 3rd, summer starts with The Fall Guy.
Let's do it later.
Let's drink a spicy margarita.
Make some bad decisions.
Yes!
Audiences are falling in love with the most entertaining film of the year.
Fall Guy.
Fall Guy?
Fall guy.
That's what the poster said.
See Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in the movie critics say exists to make you happy.
Trying to make it out?
Nope.
Because I don't either. It's not what I'm into right now.
What are you into?
Talking.
Yeah.
The Fall Guy. Only in theaters May 3rd. Rated PG-13.
Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast, part of the Almighty Baller Radio Network. I am Tara Bowen-Biggs, joined as always by Blazers outsider Danny Marang.
Oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, thanks.
Well, the nightmare is over. Round 4 of the Golden State versus Cavs championship is over. We can all get on with our lives. And by the tone of NBA Twitter tonight, I'm not sure we're all ready yet.
Yeah, that's a thing.
We all need to go outside and get some fresh air and just try to get our lives back.
Yeah, I went into the movies the other night and watched that new movie Hereditary, and staying inside right now just scares the living daylights out of me. If anybody wants to see a really awkward, crazy, strange, weird movie, they're not pitching, or they're not paying me here. It's one of the wilder horror movies I think I've seen in a really long time, and even then, what's going on NBA Twitter right now is kind of matching it.
It really is. Plus, it's raining outside, and it's really cold, and it's just weird out there.
Hey, you know what? I'm not totally
now.
against the rain, for the love of God, because I've had allergies now for the second time in my life, and I am the biggest man-child on the face of the planet, or at least was this past week. I was actually just reduced to tears. My eyes.
Oh, poor little Danny.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry you've been so miserable.
Not like in pain, but my eyes would they were watering so bad that it looked like I had lost my best friend in life. So this rain is this is the first time in a really long time when I'm like, you know what, this Oregon rain, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with this right now.
Are you sure it wasn't a result of the championships?
Yeah, no, I didn't care enough to be allergic to that.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you enjoy the whole playoffs? Not just the championship series, but the whole playoffs.
6. Portland getting absolutely steamrolled probably drops that quite significantly. But I liked a lot of the other series. The Indiana-Cleveland series was really good. Got to see Oladipo shine out. Really, I guess the Cleveland series is, with the exception of the finals, were all really good. Watching
two game 7s in the conference finals. That was exciting.
Yeah. Watching Houston lose is always entertaining. Trying to think of all the other things that kind of go along with that.
Well,
yeah, it was.
Let me ask you.
It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either.
Do you think we are seeing anything that's going to tell us about the future of basketball? I mean, the way that people have changed their games to adapt to the team from the Bay Area. I mean, Houston looked like they were the closest. Do you think, are we going to just have, even more teams now trying to create rosters that play Maury ball, or is somebody going to try to do something different to try to take down this team?
No, this is something I've talked about with a bunch of people over the last couple of weeks, and you can't replicate it unless you have a bunch of Hall of Fame caliber talent, and Houston's trying to, but even they were close. I get that, but I mean, do we really see them beating Golden State if Golden State's really running? I mean, I don't. And here's kind of how I feel about the entire situation. As far as, Team composition. I've always been a fan of not necessarily the traditional big man, but the role of the big man. And we're seeing more of them in the league. And yeah, you can go small all you want, but if Embiid's healthy and he learns and he grows, Porzingis is healthy and he learns and he grows, AD, Cat, and then you got this draft class with Ayton and Jackson. I mean, you've got so many of these big guys that they don't give a damn about your small ball. They just don't. Mm-hmm. You can go small all you want, but they're going to punish you for it. So in the long run, I don't think there's any lineup out there that's short of 3 or 4 Hall of Famers that's really going to beat the Warriors. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But what has worked throughout history is having dominant people who are big, and not necessarily just big men, but just being a bigger team. And I think ultimately that's what it'll return to as things in the Bay kind of start to fall away.
So you were talking about big men. Are you thinking that, and the ones that you listed are their size is kind of traditional, but they have the
skill
added
set's different, yeah.
Skills sets now. Now these guys have added ball handling, and they've added 3-point shooting, or at least outside shooting, farther away from the basket. Or is that what you're kind of getting at?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just the same kind of thing that I talked about when talking about the NFL. Like, the one thing everybody always says frequently is that, you can't coach speed. Well, you can't coach size either. And when you do what these guys do at their size, there's no amount of small ball that takes them out of it. And I think as far as these guys that are coming into the league now, they have these skill sets because there's no more Pete Newell big man camp. That's the big part of it, at least for me. And then
so they just simply don't do the big man camp anymore?
No, it doesn't exist. And there's nobody really filling that role. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Is that because everybody just has their own trainers now?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's guys like Drew Hanlon who does phenomenal work in training with these guys, and they're improving in the areas that we're seeing that are more common in the NBA, where everybody's kind of a wing or everybody's kind of a guard type player. But beyond that, like who's the big man coach that's out there? I mean, the last time the Blazers had a big man coach, he got fired.
Saw what happened there. Well, let me ask you about, just to drill down just on this a little bit, about our own big men. So Zach Collins, isn't he's not at the level of Embiid or Cat or Porzingis or anybody, but he does have we think that he was added because he has the ability to do the shooting. We haven't seen a lot of ball handling. I wonder if you think that might be possible.
If there's a skill set that's out there that I think can be developed over any other, it's probably ball handling. Mm-hmm. When you look around the league, you typically don't see guys that can't handle the ball all of a sudden be able to handle it. But if you've got a rough ability to do so at any point in time in your career, it's something that I think hangs around and it grows little by little. We've seen Dame tighten up his handle. It's not like it's for me. I don't know. Maybe it's just my own personal bias. I just think it's easier to improve on your ball handling than it is as a shooter. Historically, we've seen that.
Well, I kind of feel like last year when, a couple things were going on behind the selection of Collins. And, part of it was looking at the fact that Nurkic and Ed Davis could potentially be gone. And so they need to bring some new young center talent into the middle. But I also felt like last year, everybody was like casting about to try to find a unicorn. And everybody was like, all these other teams are getting these big men with all these other skills besides just protecting the rim and getting block shots all the time, and dunking. And I feel like, Portland is hoping that Zach Collins can grow into that as well. Myers Leonard, who knows? This could be the year.
Yeah,
he's shown some abilities.
I'm still not a huge fan of the unicorn hunting, and I think that was kind of something that was kind
Don't
of
you think that's what was behind?
Yeah, I think
partly
so.
behind it.
No, I absolutely think so, and I just don't think that's the right way to go. I typically fall in line with the best player available, no matter what you have. Now, that changes obviously with team construction, which is why I will always stand behind taking Odin over Durant. I mean, we're not talking about hindsight; we're talking about where they were and what they needed at that time. You have Brandon Roy and LaMarcus Aldridge. Adding Kevin Durant would be great. And everyone's like, how could they not see that he was going to fit perfectly in today's NBA? Nobody saw today's NBA coming. I mean, the Warriors didn't. And I mean, if they did, they wouldn't have paid Steph $12 million originally.
Oh, I think the thing about that debate is that it's really unsettled. It wasn't clear, which is why we're still talking about it all these years later. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about team construction, and because it is officially the off season now, and we've been in the off season for almost 48 hours and still no trades. I was waiting.
How dare them?
I know. I know realistically it's going to be a while, but boy, it sure would be nice. But in the meantime, teams are getting ready for the draft. They are working out free agents. Neil Olshey has been hitting the circuits, telling everyone that the Trailblazers have 2 exceptions, one from Alan Crabb and one from Noah Vonleh, totaling, I think, $16.5 million. So it sounds like he's out there priming the pumps for the Blazers going out to spend a bunch of money, or at least try to spend a bunch of money. And then he's also been talking about how they might be more free with their draft picks. There's all kinds of possibilities. It's a little bit different conversation than we've had over the last few years, where it was like, stay the course.
Yeah. The thing is, like, everything is impossible, though. And I think everybody knows that at this point. I'm much more wait and see, prove it to me, let me see what you can do first. Because they've had these exceptions before, and they've had positions where they could do something, and they didn't. So I'm much more wait and see on it. I think this is more marketing than anything else. But maybe there is something real to it, because there has to be. I don't think it's by any stretch of the imagination at all to say that this season jobs are on the line. Both as a general manager and coach in Portland. I don't think if they have another subpar or lower type season, that they'll be allowed to continue.
We did get news that the Blazers would not let Terry Stotts go talk to Detroit. Is that who it was?
Yep, that's the third team that's been publicly acknowledged by a source in the NBA, and for everybody out there, it's still like, oh, what do we need Stotts for? What do we need Stotts for? That's another franchise that's sitting here saying, hey, we'd like to have Terry Stotts, so keep that in mind, Stotts haters.
Yeah. Well, and we know things can change in a moment, but as of now, it looks like Terry Stotts will be in the coach's chair, at least at the beginning of the year. But let's talk about a couple of the things that the Blazers. So we talked with Steve DeWald about draft last week. We talked about some of the prospects that are brought in and some of the things the Blazers might do with that 24th pick. Let's pivot and talk a little bit about some of the free agents that very briefly, let's just talk about the free agents that stand out, who have been called in to work out. Maybe you can shed a little light on, what does that mean?
I mean, I know people, when the article originally got put up earlier this week about Omri Caspi as a potential add to Portland, people were upset or disturbed by it. Like, Portland can do better. No, they can't. They're financially, they're in a position where they have to find these guys. They have to take a flyer on somebody and hope that they regain their form. That's what the financial situation dictates. Now, we're hearing recently that Rodney Stuckey's been added to that list. KJ McDaniels has been on that list. I mean, what do all these guys have in common? They're guys that are kind of on the outside looking in. They have a particular skill set. They're all bigger or more athletic for their position than you typically see. Now, Stuckey, obviously, his athleticism is probably fading with his age, but Caspi 6'9", 6'10". McDaniels is just a giant ball of muscle. So I think it's pretty easy to see what Portland's looking at, trying to get bigger, stronger, more athletic. Contrast that, though, with the guys they're bringing in for the draft, and it's a pile of 6'3" to 6'5" combo guards. But what are you not seeing here? You're not seeing a ton of small forwards, which I think still is easily their weakest position. And you're not seeing any big men whatsoever. So if you believe anything that's tied to the reports coming out of Bosnia that Nurkic has kind of got a deal in place, I think that might tie back to the fact that Portland has basically told them, hey, go see what you can get. We'll match up to X amount, and they're pretty comfortable with where they're sitting, or they have a deal in place with Nurkic already.
I just hope whatever that number is, it's reasonable and they stick with it. I'm going to say that every week until free agency is over.
I mean, the reality of any deals in Portland is there's always going to be a premium placed on it and playing in Portland. It's just a price that comes with being in this market. It sucks, but very rarely do I think is Portland going to find themselves in a position to capitalize and get a really good deal on a above or above average or top tier player.
Well, now hold on a minute. I mean, okay, the popular narrative is that free agents don't want to come to Portland. And I get that, it's harder to attract the big names when you're in a smaller market, especially one that is far away from everything else. But I don't think it's hopeless to think that someone's going to want to come play with Damian Lillard. I mean, he's a popular guy in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I've held out hope for that idea now for a while. And what year are we in?
5. But it took a few years to realize, how big he was going to be.
Is that it, or is it that Portland's just not a desirable market? And I mean, and it's not just Damian Lillard. Guys didn't really want to come play with Brandon Roy. And Brandon was dude from day
I'm not
one.
sure that I buy that anymore. To disprove it, but I'm just not sure that I buy it to this. I mean, the world is such a smaller place than it ever was before. They can, jet off they can play a game in London in the middle of the season and fly back. I mean, I know they only do it once, but I'm just not quite sure that I buy that.
So what you're trying to say here is that London is where England is where they need to go, and it's the return of Joel Freeland.
Yes, I would love to have Joel Freeland back. Post mousse in his hair, Joel Freeland. Once he got mousse in his hair, he just became a whole different beast, and it was he was amazing.
Just too much.
But no, we don't need Joel Freeland. The Blazers will be fine without him. Although it's fun to remember the good times, right?
Good old Joel.
Okay, well, so let's stop pining for Joel and let's start talking trade, because really that's the heart of what we're going to spend the next 2 months doing, is talking trades and talking free agents. I can see we didn't get very far in our free agent discussion. We'll have to save that for another one. But I really wanted to talk about a few proposals that I have seen out there, just to get your read on some of them. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure none of them are even feasible, but I would love to hear your logic as how you go through them, because the trade proposals are going to be coming fast and furious, and I want to know how to logically look at them, break them down into the different components, and make my own decisions about whether or not they're good or feasible or not.
Okay, let's do it.
So the first one I'm going to give you is wild and way out there. So scratch what I just said about good and feasible.
Right.
But
garbage takes right out of the gate. Let's do it.
Yeah, right. So this one comes from Cavs Nation, which is obviously a Cavs blog, and the author of the story, the author of the person who's proposing the trade, he went with the idea that in Cleveland they're going to just tear everything down, that LeBron will be gone, they'll blow up the whole thing, and they will start from scratch looking at all the other assets that they have besides LeBron. What kind of a team could they build? And he went one step further and actually connected it to NBA 2K and had NBA 2K do all of the drafting for him and be the GM for him. So
strangely enough, it could do a better job than a lot of GMs I've seen.
What?
I said, strangely enough, 2K can actually do a better job than some of the GMs I've seen.
Sure. So what it spit out for in this case that is relevant to the Blazers is that the Blazers receive Kevin Love and the Cleveland Cavaliers would receive CJ McCollum and Caleb Swanigan. So Kevin Love to Portland is not new. CJ in trade talks is not new. What do you think of this one?
Oh boy. On a scale of 1 to dumpster fire, it's ranking high on the dumpster fire. That's just
okay. Why?
Number one, I've never been a big Kevin Love fan. Number two, Love's not worth what he once was. This is a guy that's had a pile of concussions. The NBA game is not really meant for him right now. He's on the downside of his prime. He's been injury prone as could be lately. CJ's a better player and a more valuable asset than Love right now. Like there's just too many things that fly in the faces. And then they're saying the Portland's gonna toss in Caleb Swanigan too, and I'm just like, wait, they're throwing in more for this? It's like I get that it's 2K and it's not just somebody throwing this out there with actually believing it. But he's still like, man, that's bad. I mean, we were talking about the idea that CJ McCollum could be included in a trade for either Paul George or Jimmy Butler. And now, a year later, we're saying it's going to take CJ McCollum and Caleb Swanigan just to get Kevin Love? Like, what? I mean, I know CJ's season was a down season, but it wasn't that far down.
Yeah, so I think Kevin Love and CJ actually make about the same amount of money. And Kevin Love he's for 18-19 and then 19-20. So he's got 2 years left, and CJ has 3 years left.
I think. Dang, it made me Google this. For some reason, I thought CJ came up in 20 as well. 2021. So he's got another year on top of that.
So this would be a 1 year shorter.
Uh-huh.
And see, when was the last time CJ threw a court-long outlet pass?
Well, this is true. CJ does not have Kevin Love's rebounding or passing acumen when it comes to outlet passes. But I'll say this. When was the last time a Blazer ran full court for an outlet pass?
Yeah.
You got to have the personnel
Well,
necessary
it's the
to do
chicken
it.
and the egg, right? I mean, maybe nobody was run full court outlet pass because there was nobody there to throw it.
Well, I mean, if you're really looking at it, though, I think you have to at least go, okay, who's the guy that's going to go do that? And the first one, obviously, that comes to mind is Maurice Harkless. Beyond that, perhaps Aminu. But beyond that, who is a regular contributor that's that guy? When you've got two pick-and-roll ISO-type point guards who are very good at what they do, and both have holes in their game when it comes to getting out in transition and creating those easy buckets in those instances, and finishing in traffic among the trees because of their size, does Love's skill set really provide all that much? I mean, Portland's a great rebounding team already, so I don't think they really need to improve their rebounding by any measure. Having a 4 or 5 that's out there that can consistently shoot the three, I think is nice. But I think CJ's ability to create and hit the three is more valuable right now, and would be more valuable, especially if CJ was gone, than Love's standstill catch and shoot 3-point shooting.
I guess I just feel very protective of Kevin Love after all that he's been through. And if it wasn't for the concussions that he very recently suffered during the finals, at least one of them, I was a little higher on on the possibility of Kevin Love coming to Portland about a month ago, because I was just like 3-point shooting, rebounding, outlet passes. I think we could make some good use of it. But after watching him in the finals, watching him get hurt again, I think, I see what you're saying about just like the talent discrepancy. Is there somebody else besides CJ? In this case, it was CJ who was proposed. I mean, anybody
could bring
that
in
you
Kevin
think
Love?
that
No, not from Portland.
Cavs would want?
No, the only thing I could see working there is Zach Collins, but then you have to throw in the contract, and that's what Cleveland's trying to get away from. But if they're talking about blowing things up, then perhaps taking on a bad contract in the place of getting a young asset like Zach Collins could be something you're talking about. But I don't see them being willing to take on what would need to be either Myers and Harkless or Evan Turner in order to make that kind of deal work.
So that they're not taking Myers and Turner and Harkless. Yeah, so that was not happening, and we knew it, but it was a warm, right? And I love thinking about trying to figure out what is going to happen in Cleveland, because obviously if LeBron is gone, the whole thing is going to be blown up. All those players were brought in to be with LeBron. I think it's going to be so interesting and so confusing to see what's going to happen, because all the domino, like if LeBron is like the first domino to fall, but he's not going to fall for a while. He's going to sit around and think about it for a while, and it's just going to be really interesting to see what happens. Okay, well, the next trade that I wanted to bring to your attention comes from our friends at Indy Cornrows, and this one also involves CJ. In this case, Portland receives Sabonis, Al Jefferson, and Bojan Bogdanovic, and a 2019 first-round pick. And Indiana would take back CJ McCollum and Evan Turner. What do you think of this proposal?
First of all, Indy is not taking back Evan Turner, ever. And it's not because of the contract, it's just because of the way things went there. I don't think I don't think Evan Turner would allow something like this to happen.
He's not going to be the Steve Blake of the Pacers.
No, things didn't go well for him there. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So,
well, he was only there for the second half.
Yeah, but he was blamed for an awful
of the
lot.
Season.
And I
somebody could convince him that things are different now. I mean, the team is completely different now.
It is, but the fan base isn't. And he was eating up pretty good for I think a lot of things that weren't his fault. And then on top of that, if Evan Turner's contract is so bad that the sweetener that needs to be tossed in with it is CJ McCollum, boy, the Blazers are in a lot worse position than I thought they were. Like, I don't think they're in the best position, obviously, but that they could possibly be there, like, in order to move that deal is going to require Evan or CJ McCollum. God dang, no. And then on top of that, I don't
even think that those players add up to enough money to get CJ and Evan. That's a lot of money.
Even that. Well, Indy does have some space, so that's part of it. And then, like, what is Portland really getting back here? More bigs and a conditional first-round pick? Like, yeah, that's what they need. Like, more bigs, and then a first-round pick. Like, I mean, if the Pacers are doing this, getting CJ McCollum to pair with Victor Oladipo and Miles Turner, where's that first round pick gonna be? I mean, come on now. Like, this is like, I get that I don't always have the best trade ideas, but I mean, at least mine are founded in some logic. Like, there's nothing here that makes any sense. That's just, don't get me wrong, I like Baby Sabonis. I think he's a nice player. Bogdanovic is a nice player too, but let's not forget he's not 10 years old. He's an older dude that came in the league from Europe. Al Jefferson is he's just a toss-in, and that's all he is. So really, you're trading CJ McCollum for Baby Sabonis, Bogdanovic, and a non-lottery pick. I mean, these two trades together, I'm like, am I that blind? Like, I'm not the biggest CJ fan in the world. I think he's a great player. I think he'd be a phenomenal number 3 on a team, and he's one of the better 2 guards in the league. Okay, now I have to get into this because I had this argument on Twitter the other day, and it kind of ties in with the Pacers here. So I want to get your thoughts real quick. There were people that were saying that CJ McCollum is a top 5 shooting guard in the league. Now, I don't find that to be true at all because there's 2 sides to the basketball court, and CJ's not so dominant on the offensive end as to ignore that side of the floor. Throw in that the 2 guard crop has some serious talent at the top, and I think it drops CJ to he's a top 10 easily, but there's a big gap. And the guys that I have, obviously Harden is one of them, but I've got Oladipo and Bradley Beal both as better or more effective players than McCollum right now. And I just, I don't, people were shocked that I said that. I'm like, why is this surprising? What about this is surprising that Victor Oladipo, who's a true no-nonsense two-way guard, same with Beal, who both had phenomenal seasons, who were both bigger, more athletic, and do more things. Like, I mean...
Well, so there's two players who are the other two in front of him that makes him fall out of 5.
I had Harden. Hold on, let me pull up my list now. Good God. You're going to make me do it.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody's always throwing around top 5, top 10, top 15. And I have this theory that when people say top 15, it's because they I really like this person, but don't ask me to name the people in front of them. But if you're going to go out there and say top 5, I want to know the, I want to know the 5.
I listed them this way because I wanted to get the exact order. Harden, Clay, Oladipo, Butler, and Beal. Would you take CJ over any of those guys?
No. It may be Beal.
Why would you take him over Beal?
Because I think Beal is less consistent.
See,
or he's just a harder fit, maybe. I mean,
I don't
things
think
didn't
that's
go
the case.
great in Washington last year.
But I think that's more John Wall than anything else. But the reason I singled out Oladipo and Beal in particular because people watch CJ all the time. Being that Oladipo and Beal are in the Eastern Conference and people are going to get a chance to see these guys a ton, unless you're watching NBA League Pass like a maniac like me, you're probably only catching these guys 2 or 3 times a year. Now, both Beal and Oladipo perform at or above where CJ does in isolation scoring and pick and roll ball handler. And we talk about how good CJ is in those particular instances. And yet these guys are doing it at or better than him in those areas. And they provide exponentially better defense. And they're both phenomenal defenders and transition scoring players. These are both guys that can absolutely light up an opposing defense with their ability to get out in the open floor and score.
Well, CJ can do that too.
In the open floor?
Oh, you mean the transition?
Yeah, no, I don't see them. I don't see CJ ever being that guy. And those free points is something the Blazers struggled with all season long. And Oladipo and Beal are guys that get you that regularly. So you've got guys that are bigger, stronger, faster, more versatile, have more to their game, and yet still people want to be CJ's clearly head and shoulders above these guys. Now, I get that there's a Portland bias or you want to love your guys. That's fine. I have no disagreement or argument with that. That's totally cool. But when you're talking about it from an objective standpoint, I don't understand how you can put those guys behind McCollum. But to get back to the trade talk, I still, and this is kind of where it comes out back around, is that I don't think CJ's a bad player by any shape, manner, or form. I just think there are guys that are in front of him that are better, that you can measurably take from. And I think that asking for quite a bit for a CJ McCollum trade is something that's absolutely, totally fine.
So you're saying the Blazers should try to get more, and both of the trades that were proposed, because they were coming from other teams, didn't get Portland enough back.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not even close. I mean,
yeah.
In just like full disclosure here, I'm a huge Victor Oladipo fan. The draft that he came out in, if you guys want, maybe I'll put the link in there. One of the first things I think I ever wrote, like it was, remotely long-winded. I know people who are familiar with my writing know how ridiculous that is. was about the Blazers finding a way to trade for Victor Oladipo, like for his draft rights. So
I guess that one
understand
didn't
my
end up on
bias.
Mr. Olshay's desk just yet, huh?
Yeah, no, I wish.
Well, let's move on because I put these in order on purpose. I gave you 2 proposals from other teams that were pretty lopsided, but the one I'm going to end up is one that you actually put out on Twitter. So I want to have you explain it.
It's a big one.
I'll do the synopsis and then you can like talk about your reasoning. So Portland, this is a 3-way trade. So Portland sends McCollum to Cleveland, Leonard to Milwaukee, and the 24th pick to Milwaukee. Cleveland sends the 8th pick to Milwaukee. Lucky Milwaukee. Smith and Korver to Milwaukee. And Milwaukee sends Brogdon, Middleton, and Henson to Portland. So in summary, Portland ends up with Brogdon, Middleton, and Henson. Cleveland ends up with McCollum, and Milwaukee ends up with 2 picks and Smith and Leonard and Korver.
Okay.
So we will put this in the show notes so people can look at that. Dan,
Yes.
Walk us through your proposal. Pretend that you've been called in to say what's the thing the Blazers need to do.
So it's no secret that I've been a fan of Middleton for a long time, and it's a bummer because this deal will never happen now because of how he looked in the playoffs. But if you're Portland and you're contemplating moving CJ McCollum, the deal that's most often been mentioned, I believe, as far as nationally goes, is either one with Philly or one with Cleveland. And now I don't think the 8th pick alone is worth CJ McCollum. I think something else has to be tied to that. So I wanted to broaden it out into 3 teams. Now, Milwaukee's a team that they've got a new coach. They have an obscene amount of talent with Giannis and guys like Thon Maker. But there's one thing that's lacking is consistent shooting. So a guy like J.R. Smith, I know consistent shooting J.R. Smith, but a guy like J.R. Smith who has a reputation as a shooter. Kyle Korver, who is a dyed-in-the-wool shooter. Myers Leonard is a guy who has the propensity to be a shooter. I think with those kind of guys around a guy like Giannis, who has so much positional flexibility, is huge. But they're also getting the 8th and 24th picks. Now, the 8th pick, I think, is probably going to end up being somebody like Michael Porter Jr. Now, imagine Milwaukee adding a 6'10" multifaceted athlete who can score basically from all levels alongside Giannis with a bunch of shooters. And you're backfilling some of the contract obligations by bringing in a rookie. Cleveland, they get to pick up a guy in McCollum, who's both an Ohio guy who would play alongside LeBron, damn near about as good as you could ask for. For Portland, though,
does this work if LeBron stays or goes?
I don't think so, because I think Cleveland's going to want to keep that 8th pick. I think that becomes much more valuable to them at that point in time. This is more about if LeBron stays, or this is something that convinces him to stay. I don't think he's going to be too apt to hold on to J.R. Smith after game 1. I don't think that's the kind of thing that you forget. For Portland's point of view,
JR.
Yeah, man. But from Portland's point of view, this is probably like the best opportunity here because let's start from the back end of the trade. You're moving a 24th pick that you're probably not going to do a whole lot with anyways. The value of it to you really probably isn't that great. Myers Leonard, we've talked about needing a new start and a new fit somewhere else. They swap him for Henson, who's a guy who probably needs the same kind of treatment. Portland is giving up shooting in a nutshell, or the possibility of shooting in Myers. But I think everybody would agree that from the basketball side of things, it makes sense that Myers get a fresh start somewhere else. But moving McCollum and Myers on the 24th pick for Chris Middleton, I think is huge. You get a 6'8" guard, forward, tweener type who can do an awful lot. He gives you a ton on both ends of the floor. With that,
is Middleton a shooter? Like, what's his describe his game?
No, he's more of the traditional shooter. Now he's got some ability to shoot off the bounce and create for himself. He's not on CJ's level in that instance, and that is, I think, where you're giving some of that up. But his ability to defend multiple positions, to create off the dribble, to knock down shots at all levels, to finish in transition. I mean, there's a lot of things that he can do that Portland really struggles in. Now, you're going to give up a few things as far as the ability to create off the dribble consistently and work out of the pick and roll. But I think the flexibility that you get from a guy like Middleton outweighs those shortcomings. And then you bring in a guy like Malcolm Brogdon, who, let's not forget, was a Rookie of the Year. And, I mean, he's not exactly a bad player to have on a cost-controlled contract for another year. Henson, just, that's your flop pick or your switch for Leonard. So I think something like this is the best possible scenario for Portland, is getting an above-average replacement player for McCollum, getting somebody young on a controlled contract with Brogdon, and swapping bad deals. You're really not giving up a ton in the grand scheme of things, as far and then the value you get in return. And let's not forget, Middleton's on a $14 million deal too, so you're getting some cap relief there as well.
What about the other teams? What do they say? Why would they hesitate, or why would they jump at any of these?
I think you touched on it, first of all, with Cleveland, with whether or not LeBron stays or goes. Milwaukee, and this is where I think that it's probably a no, is that Middleton has proven to be worth his weight in gold. I mean, his production at his cost, we talked about this last week, the production to cost ratio, Middleton's probably one of the best in the league. I mean, he truly is phenomenal right now.
I mean, if I was Milwaukee, I'd be like, really, J.R. Smith, Kyle Korver, and Myers Leonard? I mean, J.R. Smith and Kyle Korver, they're great. They've been great players for years, but they are on the far end of – I'm speaking as Milwaukee right now. They're on the far end of their usefulness right now. And, Leonard hasn't even played, and we're going to give you Brogdon and Middleton?
Yeah, this is about, more than anything, it's about the 8th pick. That's really what it comes down to. How much was a team like Milwaukee value that 8th pick? What's it worth to them? And that's probably my hesitation too. Is it's not quite enough. I was trying to think of another way to make it work, but financially, this is what makes sense. And again, Middleton was so good in the playoffs this past season, that it's nearly impossible to think that they would have anything to do with giving up Middleton.
What about from Cleveland, instead of Smith or Korver, a guy like Larry Nance Jr.?
Yeah, no, that's
a little bit
completely doable.
Younger.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I would be all for it. Dollars wise, I'm not entirely certain it works, but Nance was one of the guys that I was considering as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can definitely see more to this proposal than to the other ones, but I think we're going to have a whole lot more between now and the end of trade season doesn't really end until the trade deadline.
And even then, you're starting to ramp up for the next season.
Yeah, but it comes in waves. What do you think is going to be the date of the first trade? What's your guess on the date of the first big trade?
It's hard to get a feel for it right now. There was an early one last year. There's usually something leading up to the trade deadline or to the draft day, so a team knows. Was it Jimmy Butler, or was that on draft night? I feel like there was one a couple of days before. Yeah, there typically are a couple before. Like, the safe bet is always to say draft night, but I think there'll be one before, because a team wants to be certain of the position that they're going to be in. And then it just makes things easier to kind of.
Oh, it was the Philadelphia one. Philadelphia happened early last year. Philadelphia and Boston for the picks.
Yes, I mean, there's always something that happens along the way. So yeah, I mean, again, safe bet is draft night. If you wanted to take a little bit longer odds, probably 2 days before.
All right. Well, I think we should bookend this podcast with more championship talk, but I'm not talking about NBA championship. I'm talking about the championship that should matter to Blazer fans. You know which one I'm talking about?
The Blazers are winning. The Blazers are winning. Oh.
Yes, Blazer5 Gaming just won a tournament. This is very exciting. I don't know why we're not more excited on Twitter. I think like everybody was so cranky tonight, and I just was like, come on, Blazer5 Gaming just won the first midseason tournament. So let me make sure I have. They played in the preseason tournament or the early season tournament, and they won all their games except for the last one. So they lost in the championship round of their first tournament, and then they entered regular play, where they have so far won all of their games in the regular play. And then they had another tournament, and they were undefeated, and they won the championship in that tournament.
Yeah, so Blazer5 Gaming has easily been the best storyline as far as 2K, the NBA 2K League is concerned.
This stuff is great.
Yeah, they are basically beating up on everybody. They have 3 of the top 10 MVP candidates right now. And keep in mind, they
have the MVP of the tournament.
Yep,
Mama, I'm that man.
Yep. So they're the guys that they selected and the team that they built has done really, really well. They're undefeated in regular season play. They made it to the title game of the first in-season tournament, and they closed out and won pretty handily against Celtic Gaming in the turn tournament, the mid-season tournament. So the level at which they're playing at right now is pretty spectacular, and it's nice to see. I'm not gonna lie, it's nice to see the Portland name kind of doing well, even if it's not in the traditional role. But yeah, I mean, these guys are they got to be happy because they brought down another $75,000 prize pool to be split among all of them, and.
So does each tournament have a different purse that they compete for?
Yeah, each tournament
on top of their regular salary.
Yeah, each tournament has a purse. I don't know if they're all the same or if there's different values to each one. I can't remember off the top of my head what the purse was for the first tournament, but I do know that the total purse for this tournament was $150,000 to be split out. So these guys. Are making around $32,000 a year base pay in the 2K League, and then they're getting the additional split here. So I mean, you're looking at these guys basically making $50,000 a year right now to play 2K, which I mean, if you can get it, not a bad deal.
Yeah. How do you feel? Are they making more than G League players?
Right now, yes, but that's going to change.
In that G League players are going to make more?
Yes, G League players will start making more here next year. That's something that's coming. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see that. That is a little bit weird, but I mean, it also shows you the level of commitment that the league has right now with 2K.
Well, it is quite fun, and the Blazers have 3 of the top 10 players, and I'm going to say their names. You're going to be very impressed by Mama, I'm that man, that boy shots, and Wild Walnut, right?
Yeah, yep. You almost left Wild Walnut off.
I know.
Can't do my.
Well, I almost left the wild part off. I know it's one wild. Yeah. These guys are fun to watch, and I can't believe how much enjoyment I've been getting out of Blazer5 Gaming. Perhaps if the Blazers hadn't lost it so quickly in the playoffs, I would have not latched onto them so quickly. But it just feels right that the Blazers would, or that Portland would, come right out of the gate and just be really good at this, and then next year everybody else will figure something out, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah, no, I mean,
but it's.
I get that esports and 2K gaming isn't for everybody, but if you want something to kind of check out and Spend a few minutes watching to see if it's for you. Turn on a match on Twitch. Go to twitch.tv and check out the competitions they have going. The Blazer5 Gaming is back at it. I want to say it's the 16th against the Sixers. I wrote the article, so I should know
they're going to
off the top of
play
my
on the
head.
Sixers, the only team that they have lost to.
Yep. So it's as far
It's
as
gonna be
measuring
exciting.
sticks go. Yeah, I mean it's trust the process versus Rip City. It's gonna be fun. Like I genuinely find myself enjoying it. If for nothing else, because I just got it. I want basketball so badly right now.
I know. Well, there is WNBA, and I watched the Seattle Storm lost a heartbreaker today. It was a bummer. But Blazer5 Gaming is fun. I found the easiest way to stay in touch with their games is I actually set the notification on Twitter for them. It got a little bit busy over the weekend because of this tournament, but that's the best way for me to know when a game is going to start and get like the direct link to it. Because otherwise you're just like hunting around on Twitch, and that's nowhere I want to be hunting around. I have no business trying to hunt and find my way around on
Twitch is a scary, scary place to hunt around anyways. Stay out of the chat rooms,
right.
folks.
So I just subscribe to them on Twitter and turn on the notifications when I know that there is a game coming up. So I'll know when it starts. So I think we probably should just go ahead and wrap it up here, Dan. Pretty soon we're going to actually find out what the Blazers are going to do with that 24 pick. But in the meantime, where can people find your work?
As always, you can find me on Twitter at DMarang, at DMARANG, and you can find me on Tuesdays and Thursday nights on Blazers Outsiders on ABC Sports Northwest at 7 p.m. We are also on ABC Sports Northwest Rip City Radio 620, simulcast, Facebook Live, and we're messing around with some Twitch and Periscope too. And I got a cool announcement to make, and I don't know if I have the okay to do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. Portland Pickles are having a Blazers night. I believe it's July 12th. And Joe Simon, Shane Brand, and I will be out there tossing out the first pitch. And then doing
all three of you?
Yep. And the first pitches. And then we'll be doing a live show out there at the Pickles game.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, because a TV show like Golden Drill is definitely going to a live broadcast from a
baseball game.
Right? That's
We're doing everything we can to just get through this off season. I don't know why it just seems so torturously long already. Well, I know exactly why it seems so torturously long. Anyway, I want to remind folks that they can also email us, blazersedgepod@gmail.com. Send us your best trade proposals or your questions or your thoughts on what the Blazers might do in this off season. You can also find me on Twitter at TCBBiggs. And I think that's all about all I've got to share right now.
All right, folks. You can find us on the Almighty Lord Podcast Radio Network, on Stitcher, on iTunes, for all your podcast needs. Like, rate, subscribe, unsubscribe, do it all over again. Do that for all of your podcasts, unless there's somebody out there who listens to it and podcast.
We're all in this together, Dan. We're all one big, happy podcasting family.
No, everybody out there.
You're all winners.
Everybody out there is great. So, but yeah, no, seriously, folks, if you can take a minute to like, subscribe, rate, review for all the podcasts you listen to, it helps out a lot. So, with that, for Bowen-Biggs and myself and everybody else here at Blazer5, take care. We'll catch you next time.